What happens when you detonate all atomic bombs at once? Many of you are keenly interested in an important question. What would happen if we were to detonate all nuclear bombs at once? We take our educational responsibility seriously and have delved into this matter. So let's take a closer look at this question and attempt to answer it once and for all. Currently, there are 15,000 nuclear weapons on Earth. The USA and Russia each possess approximately 7,000 of them. France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea collectively have about 1,000. But what destructive power lies within those numbers? Let's examine these figures more closely. There are roughly 4,500 cities or urban areas on Earth with a population of at least 100,000 people. Some are larger than others, so we'll assume an average of 3 nuclear bombs to destroy a city. This means that we could destroy every city on the planet with our nuclear arsenal and immediately kill over 3 billion people, roughly half of humanity, and there would still be 1,500 nuclear bombs remaining. The expert term for this is overkill. The quantity and destructive power of our bombs are indeed quite remarkable. Now, what if we were to gather all 15,000 bombs into one enormous pile and then detonate them? Let's drop our bomb heap over the Amazon rainforest, just so nature can feel who's in charge here. Collectively, our warheads would fit into a small warehouse. A standard US warhead has a yield of 200,000 tons of TNT equivalent. With 15,000 warheads, we would have a total yield of 3 billion tons of TNT equivalent. That's enough TNT to rebuild the entire island of Manhattan, including all buildings and skyscrapers. The closest comparison to such concentrated explosive power might be a volcano. One of the deadliest volcanic eruptions in history occurred in 1883 on the island of Krakatoa. The eruption was so colossal that 70% of the island and the surrounding archipelago were obliterated. Tens of thousands of people perished. The force of the eruption reverberated around the world for days. Our bomb heap has 15 times the energy of the Krakatoa eruption. So let's finally ignite it. Within a second, a 50-kilometer wide fireball would form, vaporizing everything in its path, while its shockwave flattened 3,000 square kilometers of forest. Every living being within a 250-kilometer radius would ignite. The explosion would literally encircle the Earth repeatedly over the following weeks as the shockwave circumnavigates the planet. Millions of tons of incinerated debris would be catapulted into the atmosphere. The mushroom cloud would reach into the highest layers of the stratosphere and almost into space. And after things calmed down somewhat, we would see a small crater about 10 kilometers wide amid the worst wildfires in millennia. The fires would spread across South America, consuming forests and cities, and this is just the beginning. The released, highly radioactive material is lethal to all life, rendering an area of several kilometers around the crater immediately uninhabitable. The same goes for everything downwind, for hundreds of kilometers. A significant portion of radioactive particles would reach the upper atmosphere, almost reaching space and doubling the global concentration of radioactive material in the environment. It wouldn't be the end of civilization, but it would likely raise cancer rates for a while. Some particles would remain near the edge of space, causing a nuclear winter that could lower Earth's temperatures by a few degrees for several years. For the residents of South America, especially Brazil, the explosion would be particularly devastating. The Amazon rainforest would be history, which isn't great, but human life would persist. So that's all well and good, but could we detonate even more nuclear weapons? Let's assume that people mined all the uranium in the world to manufacture as many nuclear bombs as possible. Based on current resource knowledge, there's approximately 35 million tons of uranium still in the Earth's crust. That's enough to power human civilizations with electricity for over 2,000 years, or create millions of nuclear warheads. Let's consider a hypothetical pile of bombs with a detonation yield equivalent to 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. This would be comparable to the asteroid impact that ended the age of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, but in nuclear form. Our pile would explode with a fireball so massive that it could be seen from half of South America. The energy released would be colossal, causing the ground to behave like a liquid and creating a crater 100 kilometers wide. Bedrock as massive as entire mountain ranges would vaporize instantly, while tens of thousands of tons of debris would be hurled into space at tremendous speeds, some of which would leave the Earth forever, but most of which would return as hot, burning debris, heating our atmosphere like an oven, and resulting in the death of most larger animals and global firestorms. The Earth's crust would ring like a bell as it experienced the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded. Cities would be obliterated. Hurricane-force winds would mow down every tree in South America, and wildfires would consume the continent. Due to the high concentration of hydrocarbons, the Amazon rainforest would turn to ash and be hurled into the atmosphere. The ash particles would darken the sky and block out sunlight, causing global temperatures to drop almost to freezing. The ensuing nuclear winter could last for decades and lead to the extinction of most larger species, including humans. We could also mention that every corner of the Earth would be covered in radioactive material, but that hardly matters now. The end of humanity has arrived. The astronauts on the International Space Station might witness this spectacle, but it's not unlikely that the station would be struck and destroyed by a hail of debris. People who managed to seek refuge in bunkers or submarines would likely survive the longest, depending on when they're forced to venture outside in search for food. Then, they would find nothing but a charred, icy, and radioactive wasteland. The planet itself would remain unaffected. Just a few million years later, the wounds of the explosion would heal, and life would thrive without humans as never before. If intelligent life were to develop again, they might go in search of clues. When exploring the Earth's layers, they would find a peculiar, thin layer of rock encircling the entire planet, laced with radioactive elements like uranium and other noxious fission products. This layer would also contain rare earth elements and human-made plastics. They would surely be quite perplexed.